Most of the mineralisation that we've identified to date is sort of within the top 200 metres from surface. We think that's going to be very amenable to open pit mining. And I think that's what makes this project quite unique.
Well, hello, welcome to Assay TV. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Darren Gordon, who is the Managing Director and CEO of Centaurus Metals. Darren, good to see you joining us from Perth today.
Thanks, Leo. Good to be here.
Today, we'd like to talk to you about your Jaguar project in Brazil, a nickel sulfide project. Tell us a little bit about some of the work you've been doing over the last 12 months. You've just recently done a resource update, I believe.
Yeah, no, we have. It's been a pretty busy period. We were fortunate enough to pick up this project sort of at the back end of 2019 from Vale. A pretty well-established project, albeit it had been sort of sitting in their portfolio for some time without any work being done on it. But to go and find a project that already had 55,000 metres of diamond drill core gave us a really big head start. So yeah, we've got to work really quickly. The last 12 months has probably seen us do another 20-odd thousand metres of our own drilling. We put out a maiden JORC resource in June last year, and then more recently, just a couple of weeks ago, we were able to update that JORC resource with a much higher component in the indicated category, which, you know, with the plan of that being to support us getting scoping study numbers out to the market. So we've established a strong team in Brazil over a number of years now. We find it a good place to operate, and I think we've really made a good fist of it to date.
Absolutely. And in terms of the sort of shape and depth of the deposit and things like that, it's quite shallow, I believe.
Yeah, look, most of the mineralisation that we've identified to date is sort of within the top 200 metres from surface. We think that's going to be very amenable to open pit mining. And I think that's what makes this project quite unique for a nickel sulfide play. Most people in Australia would understand nickel sulfides as sort of being deeper, sort of underground type operations. But over here in Brazil at this project, we've seen most of that mineralisation come to within sort of 5 to 15 to 20 metres of surface, and we think that that's going to give us really nice economics as we look to sort of go through the development path. So most drilling to date's probably been down to sort of 250 metres, 300 metres maximum depth, whereas, obviously a number of other nickel sulfide explorers, producers, developers, they're all, looking at much deeper depths than where we are.
And in terms of your resource update, what sort of numbers were you putting out?
Yeah, so look, the resource is now over 50 million tonnes of grading about sort of 0.9% nickel, so a bit over 500,000 tonnes of contained metal, which we think is significant in no matter how you look at it. Importantly, I guess in that resource we had a big uptick in the indicated component, which we need to be able to get scoping study numbers into the market. So that was really the focus of our activity over the last 6 months, and that's allowed us to sort of lift that indicated component by 50% and sort of now have over 200,000 tonnes of nickel sitting in the indicated category. So I think that's going to be hugely important in us to be able to get this scoping study pulled together, demonstrate the economics and show to people the real value equation that we already believe is sitting in the project, and we just want to be able to get that into the market.
Well, and when would you hope to get a scoping study out?
Yeah, look, we're well down that path. So we're hopefully by middle of March, we are in a position to get the scoping study out for base case. And for us, the base case is the traditional nickel concentrate flotation circuit. We are also looking at a value-added, pressure oxidation study. That'll probably come 2 to 3 weeks after the first study results come out, just to give people time to digest the first base case and the economics that sit within that. So we've done a lot of work over the last 6 months, but it's been a function of needing to get that drilling and getting that component of indicated up so that we can put production targets and economics into the marketplace.
I mean, let's talk a little bit about the market for the product that you'll be producing. I believe you're looking to sort of play into the market for Class 1 battery grade nickel? Obviously, there's lots of different types of nickel for steel making, but you're looking very much at the battery end. In terms of the available supply and the projected demand, how are those numbers stacking up?
Oh, look, I mean, I think if you talk to anyone in the market, they understand that if you're trying to supply Class 1 nickel for the EV market, there's probably going to be a shortfall of that. I don't think there's anyone that's sort of jumping out and saying we've got an immediate supply. Nickel sulfide deposits in their own right are quite rare. This one at Jaguar is rarer again in the sense that it's mineralization that comes to surface, which we think is going to be open pittable. But, to have a Class 1 supply, and, we're sort of aspiring to get to a point where we're 20,000 tonnes of recovered nickel per annum. That's pretty significant. And I think that will be interesting to the people that are sort of demanding sort of that Class 1 nickel to be brought to market. So we feel like we're in a good position, but I think more broadly, the market for nickel is going to be strong. I think the nickel that's going into the stainless market, I think that's going to be strong, driven by, governments sort of trying to stimulate economies. But when you're looking at the EV market, you need to either have nickel coming from sulfide deposits, or you've got to put in much more expensive HPAL circuits to be able to treat laterites, to be able to get that to a level where you can actually use it in the batteries.
Absolutely.
So I just think, overall, having a sulfide project with a resource, that's as large as what it is, it's really putting us in a strong position.
And how did you end up in Brazil?
Yeah, look, it's an interesting path that we've taken. We've been operating in Brazil for probably 12 years now. Started out life there working up iron ore assets. We still have an iron ore asset there that is probably very economic in its own right, or we know it's very economic in its own right now. And we're looking at ways that we might be able to bring some of that value to our shareholders. We probably don't get any value for that iron ore asset presently, but I think the work that we did on that project was probably a big part of how we were able to get a deal done with Vale in the first place. I think with longevity in country and showing that you do things the right way, that you've got the right environmental approach, that you're looking at things the right way socially. All of those things are important to big companies like Vale, and I think the work that we did on the iron ore showed that we can take a project all the way through the development path. Yes, we didn't quite get that iron ore project into production sort of back in 2012, 2013, but that work demonstrated to them that we can move through that. So, when you look at what we did with Vale, where we were able to sort of pick up this asset for relatively low upfront cash consideration, there's some deferred payments, but predominantly most of their consideration comes from a royalty stream. I think that shows that they're comfortable that we can actually take a project into production, knowing that that's where they're going to get the lion's share of their consideration. So, for us, it's a long time in country. I think the benefit of that is we've got a team of people. So during this period where we've had COVID, we've had guys on the ground that have worked with us since 2010, 2012. There's a high degree of trust with those people. So whilst we can't travel to Brazil at the moment, being in Australia, it's one where we've got absolute faith in the guys that are on the ground doing the work. Bruno Scarpelli heads up our team in Brazil, does a fantastic job there. Gaudius Montresor is sort of our exploration manager, looking after all of the team in Tucumã. So, I think that probably doesn't get recognised enough. I think just people trying to operate in foreign jurisdictions, it's really about having a solid team that can actually, roll out and do the day-to-day, particularly when you've got pandemics going around the globe. So I think, time and country has been enormously important to us.
And your project is in a very sort of well-established mineral province, Carajas.
Yes, great place to be. I mean, when you look at mineral provinces globally, there's not too many better And when you look at the sheer mineral endowment in this region and some of the size of the mines that are operating there already, when you think about from the copper side of things, Vale's got their Salobo mine. You know, you've got S11D from an iron ore perspective. You've got Onça Puma from a ferro-nickel perspective. You know, these are serious operations that have had billions of dollars spent on them. There's a huge amount of infrastructure already in the region. So, yeah, that's a big head start for a company like us who's trying to get a project up and running. And I think, you know, Avanco was a good example of, you know, a smaller company being able to build a project in the Carajas because there is already a lot of infrastructure there. So, you know, there's rail lines, there's power, there's plenty of water. You know, you can fly a 737 jet into Carajas airstrip. You know, Parapebas, which is the sort of hub of the Carajas, is 250,000 people. You know, all the big service companies have a base there. So, you know, when you look at where you want to be in Brazil, this is, I sort of look at it as being an industrial zone and it's, you know, really important to be able to get a good project like Jaguar up and running because we're in the A1 location.
So what is your timeline and your you know, projected development pipeline?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're targeting to have Jaguar up and running by first commercial production sort of the end of 2024. We've got to get a lot done between now and then. Yeah, that all starts with getting the scoping study out. As I said, in a few weeks' time, we'd expect that we're going to be rolling straight into pre-feasibility study work, and then sort of getting through those study phases over the next couple of years. The biggest time determining factor to production is still the environmental approval process. That's, you know, something where we would be targeting to get our installation license to build the plant by the middle of or early in 2023. And that's, you know, that really does drive the project. And, you know, people have, I guess they query your ability to get through these approval processes, but we've done it before with our iron ore project. So, you know, we've got mining leases and we got through the full environmental approval process on that project. Bruno's sort of background is environmental approvals, and he sort of was involved with Vale for Salobo and S11D. So we know what needs to happen in the Carajas. We know the work that needs to be done. We've already collected all of the wet and dry season data for the environmental impact assessment. And as soon as we've completed the scoping study, we'll be in a position to lodge that environmental impact assessment and really kick off that full environmental approval process. And anything we can do to short circuit that from a point of view of getting through the timeline, that's obviously going to be beneficial to that sort of end date of getting into first commercial production.
So targeting production 2024, lots of work to be getting on with in the meantime. But thank you very much for updating us today on the project. And if people want to find out more about your company, they can go to your website, which is centaurus.com.au. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Darren Gordon.
Yeah, good on you, Leo. Appreciate it.